You in?
Lovely, thanks.
Great. Right, without further ado, I'll just start with a bit of housekeeping here, and shortly I'll hand over to Dan. So, this event is recorded. However, this will only be us, only our faces and our names will be recorded. So, if you are an attendee, your details will not be recorded. We'll share this recording with you in a few days' time. So anyone who registered will get a recording. Just be patient. That should come out sometime in the middle or late next week. Please use the Q&A box for any questions about content. We'll only open that up at the end of each section where we allow Q&A. Use the chat box if you've got a technical issue. So if you're not able to hear a speaker or some other technical issue, then use the chat box. Here's a little overview of the event. We're obviously running a little bit late, so this will probably just imagine all of this is sort of pushed back maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But we've got a little introduction here. Then Dan Quigley will deliver a taster lecture. The careers team will talk a bit about how they support you on the program. We've then got a Q&A session with some current MFE students. And then we've got a larger Q&A session with faculty, careers, and students. And then most of the people on the call, most of the presenters will then drop off the call, and Akbar and I will continue with the admissions presentation and finish with some admissions Q&A. So just to give you an overview of the program, this is a 9-month full-time program that's taught all in Oxford. And it's designed to help you make that step from your undergraduate degree into your early career position. So this is designed for candidates with up to 2 years of experience in finance or consulting or a related sector. If you had more than that 2 years of experience, you'd want to be considering the Masters in Applied Financial Economics, which we will talk a little bit more about in the admissions presentation. But this program really does balance theory and practical skills required for industry. Here's a sort of brief overview of how your 9 months might look on the MFE. So starting in July, even in June this year, we have an offer holder day for anyone who's received an offer. Your support with careers starts at this point. So there will be several online sessions, mostly during the weekend. Careers will talk about this. Then in September, we have a launch week. This year, we're going to London to visit a few different firms. There's a program launch and some pre-program courses to help you get up to speed. And then you'll focus mainly on your core courses from October to March, so Michaelmas and Hilary term. You'll come back for the third term, Trinity term, for your core course exams. And then you'll have a choice of either 5 electives or 4 electives and a project, which finishes with elective exams. And then in early July, your program ends. You'll have an end of course ceremony and a farewell dinner. So with a little overview there, I'm going to hand over to Dan Quigley. I don't know if someone can give Dan control of the slides as well while I've got, if that's possible. And then I will hand over to Professor Dan Quigley.
Lovely, thank you, Daniel. Let me see if I have the slides. Looks like I don't have control yet. Um,
Okay, one moment. Oh, let me see if I can give you control here. If not, then I'll just move the slides for you. But
Lovely, yeah.
maybe if I make you a co-host, this might work.
Let's see.
Any luck yet?
No, it doesn't look like it.
No. Okay. I'll do the slides for you and
Okay.
just let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Afternoon, everyone. My name's Dan Quigley. I'm an associate professor in the economics department at Oxford and a fellow of Exeter College. So you can see a picture there in the top right hand of the slide of my lovely college. That's a view from the Fellows Garden, which is it's very pleasant in summertime. This year, I'm program director for the MFE, and also regularly, I am the convener of the economics core course on the program. Um, in terms of me and my work, I'm an information economist. So that means that I study the theory of the different ways in which information shapes outcomes in markets, the outcomes of policy interactions, and the outcomes of various social institutions broadly. And typically, my interests are in the ways that we can reshape institutions to better harness information and help people enjoy better outcomes. You can see there, Rational Herds. This is a book, a famous book in information economics. It's one of my favorite ones. And if you come to the MFE, actually towards the end of the microeconomics sequence, we will learn a little bit about how rational individuals can herd with each other. Daniel, if you could next slide, thank you. Um, in Oxford, we're very proud of the MFE. We've been running it for a long time now, and with the benefit of all of that experience, we're in a position where we're now consistently ranked among the highest programs for what we do. The kinds of unique things about the MFE, um, the first one's kind of there in the name. We're not a master's in finance only. We also teach you how to think like an economist. And so whether that's thinking about or understanding the macroeconomy or understanding international trade, or even how to think about and how to play certain strategic interactions to your advantage, those are all kinds of issues that we get to teach you on the economic side. Another thing that's another feature of our course is that we blend together theory on the one hand, so we teach you rigorously the kind of logic and ideas that underlie the great insights of economics and finance. Um, but on the other hand, we also teach you how to apply those insights to problems that are relevant to you and to your future careers. Next slide, please, Daniel. Thank you. In terms of the class profile, here's some data from the current crop of students. We've got roughly balanced gender ratio, so roughly 50-50 males to females. The current crop is about 90 students. That varies a little bit from year to year, but 90 sounds about average to me. Um, as Daniel mentioned, right, the typical profile of a student is someone who's got up to 2 years worth of work experience, and so that typically means that the age range of our students is between 20 and 25. Um, our candidates do well on the GMATs, right? So you can see the average GMAT score there. The last thing to remark on is that we're a diverse group. We've got students represented from 24 different nationalities this year, and the majority of our students in this cohort are international. Next slide, please, Daniel. Thank you. In terms of the course and what it offers, you study for 3 terms in Oxford, and in the first 2 terms, you'll be studying core course material. And those core courses will be asset pricing, corporate finance on the finance side, and then 2 on the economics side. So you'll do a general econ course and financial econometrics. Um, all 4 of those are taught across the first 2 terms. Each term is 8 weeks long. So Oxford has fairly short terms, but they are packed full of things to do. Typically, you'd expect 5 to 6 hours of contact time per course per week. Um, and of course, beyond that, a lot of learning when you come for graduate studies is self-directed, right? So the rest of your academic week will be filled up with study time. Um, those core courses are examined at the very beginning of the third term. So you get to get those out of the way, which is good. So in late April, you take those exams and you can draw a line under the core courses and then move on to some exciting electives. Next slide, please, Daniel. Thank you. So here's a slide which shows the various other types of learning that you'll get to enjoy on the course. And that begins with the pre-course material. So when you first arrive, before any of the core courses begin, you'll take lectures in ethics and finance, and you'll do some refreshers in maths and financial reporting just to get people back up the curve and get your heads back in that material. As I said, you've got 2 terms of core course material before you get to select some elective papers. You take 5 elective papers in your final term, of course, relative to, they're shorter papers than the core courses. And you get a wide menu to select from. So you might be someone who likes to take continuous time finance, or you might be someone who wants to take a paper in diversity, inclusion, and finance, or finance and AI, for example. So there's a broad menu for you to pick from. This is non-exhaustive. It's just a selection there that you can see on the slide. In lieu of one of the elective papers, you can choose to do an individual project instead. This is a bit like a mini thesis that plays out over 2 months. So you and an academic supervisor meet regularly to write a paper on a particular topic of your interest. Something that's new and that we hope will be in place by the time your cohort begins is the idea of an internship for credit. So in place again of one of your 5 electives, we're hoping to be in a situation where we can allow you to count your internships for credit instead. That's pending approval at the university level, and we're hoping that that will come through soon. Outside of the academic program, there's other opportunities for you to learn, particular learn on the practical side. So we have our finance lab and we have asset management masterclasses in which you can do workshops honing those skills. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, great. So with the preliminaries out of the way, let's do a little bit of economics together. So I'm a micro theorist, and so it's natural for me to talk about auctions. And let's imagine that you are the owner of this very beautiful painting by Da Vinci and you want to sell it. You might choose to do so via an auction. Now, the question is, which auction? One thing you could do is run a sealed bid auction. This is where you invite bidders to privately submit their bid on a piece of paper, seal it in an envelope, and pass it to you. You'll open those envelopes, and typically you'd want the highest bidder to win. There's still a question though, which is how much are you going to ask them to pay, right? And so, in other words, what are the rules regarding who pays what in the auction? There's a couple of different variants here. If you click to the next slide, Daniel, one variant is the first price sealed bid auction. This is where the highest bid wins and the winner pays the value of their bid. There's a different variant called the second price sealed bid auction. Here, the winner is still the person who made the highest bid, but crucially, they pay not their own bid, but the value of the second best bid. Now, you might think, why on earth would you ever run the second price auction? That sounds like you're going to be raising less money than the first price auction. But one of the lessons here will be that, we need to be careful about incentives and about strategy, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Now, separate from these sealed bid auctions, we might do something which is a bit more open and transparent. Okay, so that's what an open auction is. And you're probably familiar with this type of auction. You can see in the picture on the right-hand side, this is an open outcry auction. And we know how this works, right? We know that an auctioneer shouts out prices and people raise paddles if they're willing to pay that price. As the price rises or as the price ascends, people drop out and the last person standing wins and they pay the value of that last announced price. That's called an ascending auction. And if you click to the next slide, thank you, Daniel, that's perfect. We can see that there's another type of auction, right? An open auction, open and transparent, but it's called a descending auction. If you've ever seen Dutch tulips being sold at auction, you'll have come across this auction. It works almost exactly the opposite to the ascending one. There's a bunch of bidders in the room, and there's a huge clock in the room, and that clock starts at a very high price. The auction begins, and the clock starts to drop. So the price is dropping, dropping, dropping. As long as that clock's going, the auction's still live. Any bidder at any point can choose to stop the clock. The first person to stop the clock wins the auction, and they pay the value that is on the clock at the time that they stop. So you can see there's lots of choice here in how we might run an auction. And there's a question then, which is, well, how should we do this, right? Which is the best auction to choose? And the key lesson that economics delivers is that, well, the best design of an auction has to take into account the way that the auction incentivizes bidders to bid. So let's imagine, for simplicity, that we're selling off that artwork, and a key feature of something like art is that it's entirely personal. So my preferences for this particular artwork and my willingness to pay are completely unrelated to yours. And let's think about incentives to bid in that environment. Next slide, please. Now, if we're running the first price auction, strategically, it's a terrible idea to bid your maximum value for the item, right? Because even if you win the thing, you're going to pay exactly your maximum willingness to pay. That's not very good. What a bidder would rather do in this environment is something called shading their bid, right? They'd rather underbid and take the risk of occasionally losing the item, even when they'd like it. On the other hand, to enjoy a low price in the event that they win. So the first price auction, it tempts people to bid timidly rather than aggressively. Next slide, please. On the other hand, the ascending auction gives people aggressive incentives to bid, right? In particular, as the price rises, you want to stay in that auction so long as the current price is below your maximum willingness to pay. Now, you might get lucky and everybody drops out before you reach your maximum willingness to pay. That's great, in which case you'll win and you pay a price less than your value. But as long as that price is lower than your value, it's worth you staying in. Next slide, please. The second price auction works in the same way. In fact, it gives you the same incentives as the ascending auction does. In that environment, you want to bid exactly your value for the item. And here's a lesson, right? When we think about the first price versus second price auction, earlier on we thought, oh, that's crazy. Why would you ever run the second price auction? You appear to receive less money than in the first price one. Well, the second price auction gives you more aggressive incentives to bid high. Okay, and so when we take into account the incentives, it's not so clear which of the two of them raises more revenue. Lovely, and that's a lesson to take away. First takeaway is that the way in which we shape and design our auction determines the incentives of bidders to bid either close to their valuation aggressively or far away. And this is something that economists think a lot about, and indeed not just economists but practitioners too. Nowadays you get lots of economists employed by the likes of Facebook and the other big tech companies to help design their auctions for selling off advertising space. Right? Of course, this is intrinsic and very important to Facebook's revenue model, right? And so, of course, it's high stakes for them how to design the optimal auction. And they go through exactly these insights when they're trading off the different ways to design the auction. They take into account how the design of the auction will affect the incentives of bidders, the advertisers, to bid for advertising space. They actually do something which is a bit more sophisticated than just that, which is they trade off their short-term revenues today against long-term revenues. So one thing that you don't want to do is, as Facebook, is you don't want to give lots of poorly calibrated adverts to consumers because that would drive the likes of you and me away if we're being spammed all the time. So Facebook also takes into account its design a priority. It gives a benefit to advertisers who are selling products that are likely to be a good match for the consumer. Good. Next slide, please. Lovely. Okay, good. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, before we finish, about a slightly more complicated issue in auctions and bidding, right? It's bidding strategically, and this is one that you might come up against, right, when you're in your future careers in finance or in other walks of life. Um, so things get much more complicated as a bidder when you're thinking about how to bid in an auction where the item that you're trying to buy is one where everybody's value is related to each other's, right? The artwork, we said, oh, our values, my value is no more likely to be related to yours than anybody else's. Now, that's not true for all assets. In particular, for something like an rights to extract oil, right, from a particular field, actually all the oil companies bidding have very correlated values with each other. Whoever wins gets access to that particular plot of land, and the amount of oil under the ground is the same for everybody. Now, none of us knows typically how much oil is under the ground, right? For sure, under any plot. The best we can do is we can hire a geologist to do a study, right, and to collect samples and to make a guess. Now, values are interdependent when I care about what your guess is. Okay, so I would like to see the data that your geologist put together, right? And in that environment, there's a complexity that's going to come in the auction. Okay, now this doesn't just apply to oil fields. If we click to the next slide, we'll see it applies to lots of different assets, right? So when you're buying a house, you're in this situation. Part of the valuation is it's idiosyncratic to you, right? You have your own preferences on location and the amenities that the house gives you. But there's a common value component as well, which is the resale value of the house. It's the same for all of us. Okay, lovely. So next slide, please, Daniel. If lovely. So we're going to play a game together, right, in which we try to learn how to bid strategically in this kind of environment. And this game is called the wallet game. So I want you to imagine that you and I are bidding for the joint contents of our two wallets. Okay, if we next slide, perfect. Now let's imagine that each of us thinks that the other one has somewhere between £0 and £100 in their wallet, right? Every value in that range equally likely. So on average, you think that I have £50. On average, I think you have £50. And let's imagine we run an ascending auction where the price rises until one of us drops out. Okay, good. So the winner of this thing is going to win both of the wallets. And you, of course, know what's in your wallet. You can open your wallet and look inside. And let's suppose you look inside and there's £10 in there. You don't know what's in my wallet. Okay, lovely. Good. Now, while you don't know exactly what's in my wallet, you should kind of respect me, right? You should think, oh, well, the way that Dan is going to bid is going to be somewhat rational. He's going to be bidding in his own self-interest, and I should take that into account, right? In particular, I want you to now think about what should you bid in this environment. You don't know what's in my wallet, so you might be timid. You might say, well, let me bid 30. You might be a bit more moderate. You might bid 60. You might be aggressive. You might bid 90, or you could bid anything else if you wish. Okay, and I'm not going to tell you what you should bid. Instead, I'm going to ask you what you want to bid. So if you scan this QR code, and I'll do the same, you'll be taken to a Google Sheets page, and you'll have an opportunity to make a bid. So remember, you have £10 in your wallet. You don't know what's in mine. You think anywhere between 100, 0 and 100 is possible. And if you submit a guess for a bid, I will see it come up on this Google Sheets. And we've got a few come in already. I'm going to wait for a moment, see if we get a few more. We've got a range of bids coming in at the minute. So we've got the lowest bid is 20. The highest bid is 70 currently. The most bids right now are 60. So we've got 4 bids at 60, 3 at 50. Um, um, Good. We've had a couple of really low bids. So actually a very low bid at 4. Lovely. Okay, good. So the big, like lots of spread. And then the last bid came in at 90, a big one. So big spread of bids there. The most common one was 60. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, please, Daniel. I want to think about that 60, actually. I want to think about the consequences of bidding 60. Now, what might have motivated someone to bid 60? Well, this is a plausible story. You say, I know I've got £10. I know Dan on average has £50 in his wallet. So the wallets together on average are worth 60. So that's what I'll bid. So let's imagine that's how people bid, right? So if that's how you're bidding, then surely that's how I'm going to reason as well. Okay, if I'm sensible like you. And imagine that we run the ascending price auction and then I drop out at 55. What does that mean for you? Well, you've won the auction. Congratulations, right? You're going to pay £55 for winning that auction. Now, how much is in the two wallets, though? There's £10 in your wallet. And if I'm following the same rule as you, next slide, please, and even next one again. If I'm following the same rule as you and I drop out at 55, it must be that there was only £5 in my wallet. So you've just paid £55 for two wallets that are worth 15. Now, I think we can all agree that's a pretty bad outcome. And indeed, that bad outcome goes by a name in economics. That's called the winner's curse, the tendency for the winner to be the most aggressive bidder and therefore to be an overbidder. Okay, good. So this is not just a theoretical curiosity. It's something that if whenever you open the FT, you sort of frequently see some kind of winner's curse problem going on. This is an example from the sale of offshore wind, wind farm access. Um, uh, and the winner of this was a consortium that involved BP. And the remarkable thing, was how much they paid. So they paid this enormous, exorbitant price, and in particular, the highest bid, the one that won, was 65% higher than the next highest bidder. Now, if you're one of the CEOs of BP and you discover that this is what's happened, you are very cross, right? You're very cross with whoever managed the auction for you, right? Because you must be thinking at this point, what did everybody else know about the potential of these wind farms that caused them to bid so timidly? Have we made a huge mistake? Were we too optimistic, and everybody else, or the rest of the bidders, know something that we don't? Um, and indeed, right, you might say, well, this is an instance of the winner's curse in action. They won, but they certainly regret how much they won it for. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, lovely. Now this is the last slide, and then I'll hand over. So we might ask ourselves as economists, how can we avoid the winner's curse, right? What's a strategy that we can employ to avoid the winner's curse? And in this wallet game, actually, there's a very nice, neat strategy that players can play, which means that they win whenever they are a stronger bidder than their opponent, and yet they never suffer the winner's curse like we did earlier. They never overpay. So the strategy that works is to simply bid twice what's in your wallet. So you look in your wallet, it's £10. You're going to bid 20. So anyone who did bid 20, congratulations, that's a good bid. So why is that a good bid? Well, if everybody reasons in the same way, we should expect that our opponents are going to bid twice what's in their wallet. Okay, so if we call W the value in my wallet and we call W0 the value in my opponent's wallet, right, let's imagine that our opponent is bidding twice their value. Okay, next slide, please. What that means is that if you win, then the price you pay is going to be two times the value that's in his wallet. Now, what do you win? Well, when you win W, what's in your wallet, and you win W0, what's in his wallet. Okay. What do you pay? You pay two times what's in his wallet. Now, with this strategy, you're going to win whenever you have a fatter wallet than he does. And in particular, you're always going to win something that's more valuable than the price you pay. You win W plus W naught. W is bigger than W naught, but you only pay two times W naught. Okay, so in doing so, this strategy protects you against the winner's curse. You win when your wallet has more in it than he does. That justifies you being the more aggressive bidder. And moreover, you never suffer the winner's curse. You never overpay. So if we click down, I think maybe one more slide. The big takeaway here is that if you're thinking strategically, you shouldn't worry about what your opponent might know or what they might have in their wallet. Instead, you should focus on what they have at the moment that you win. So when your bid is a winning bid, how are you winning? Right? And what in particular must be true about what's in their wallet in order for you to win? Well, when you win, they don't have much in their wallet. And if you take that into account properly, you'll bid much less aggressively, okay, and you'll avoid the winner's curse. Good. Thank you. So I think that's me done for the taster lecture. If there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but there's no pressure for people to have questions.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll save we're going to do a larger Q&A after careers and students have presented, but just because we're a little bit short on time, we'll put all the questions together. So if you have questions for Dan, write them down, keep them in your mind, and you'll be able to ask them in a bit. So we'll hand over to John, Ben, and Giselle now, and I think I may have to control the slides for you as well, but let's uh let's hand over to John first, I think, or
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Daniel and Dan. Fascinating stuff, and welcome everybody. Nice to have you join us. I'm John Matchwick. I head up finance careers and early careers here at the business school, and that covers MFEs. It covers MLFs, or those MLF, those Masters of Law of Finance students who are focused on finance. Anybody similarly from the MBA program and also the executive MBA program. We've got quite a lot to cover in quite a short space of time, so I won't dwell too much. I'm here and joined today by two of my colleagues, Ben Leslie and Giselle Moodley, who introduce themselves in a little bit more detail slightly later on. But what we're going to cover is going to have a quick look at typically where MFEs end up post program. We're going to look at the support around you, the people around you to support you, that is, and also some of the resources, both library and other online resources that are here to assist you. And then Ben's going to take you through some of the pre-arrival sessions that we put on for MFEs to get them hopefully slightly ahead of the application game on arrival. So over to Ben.
Thank you, John, and hello, everybody. Um, Starting today's presentation, or moving on from today's presentation, just quickly look at the end of the potential outcomes that the MS students routinely enjoy. Obviously, the names that you see on these next couple of slides change year on year. But whether you're interested in working in banking, whether you're interested in working on the buy side, or indeed consulting, the names that many students year on year aspire to work are routinely represented right across the main financial centres, whether it's London, into Europe, or indeed Asia, Hong Kong, or mainland China. Last year we had an outstanding year. 7 people went from the program to Goldman Sachs. I think it was one of the biggest hires. As you can see, JP Morgan also, both in banking and on the asset management, hires a significant number of students. And lastly, the Morgan Stanley as well, and McKinsey. So whether you're on this program, when you're on this session thinking more in banking or consulting, or anywhere else for that matter, the outcomes really speak for themselves. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Ben and John. Lovely to meet you all, and thank you for joining us today. Similar to John and Ben, I support the master's students, including our executive degree programs, around finance-related topics from a career perspective. And I'll take a step back just to guide you through the entire Career Development Center. So you can think of us basically as your partner throughout your time at the business school and beyond. We spend a lot of time helping you position yourself as you think about preparing for the workforce. And you'll notice from this slide that the team is basically organized according to key sectors. So financial services, which is where the 3 of us are placed, tech and e-commerce, consulting, and global industry, which is basically where everything else falls. We also have a very dedicated team to alumni and everything that happens post your time at the business school. And that's a really strong testament to how we intend to support you from a lifelong learning perspective. Moving on to the next slide. if you're thinking a lot more about a finance career, these are the faces you probably want to befriend. And we take care of everything from a core student, or rather, John, Ben, and I make up more of the core student facing team. So once you're here, you'll also meet Sean, who's no stranger to students, and Grace, who supports us a lot when it comes to delivering student initiatives and events. We also work alongside a group of highly experienced industry advisors, so they have spent significant time leading functional areas across highly prominent brands in the market, including the likes of JP Morgan, Rothschild, etc. And they bring incredibly valuable industry insights and practical perspectives. So we draw on their expertise when we require specialist knowledge and more of the technical insights. On the next slide, you'll have an introduction to our consulting team. So they set up in a similar fashion to the finance team. Same with them, they are supported by industry advisors, and the team is headed up by Justice Adu, who's ex-BCG and happens to be an MBA alum. And the next slide will give you a snapshot overview of how we function. So our approach is twofold. It's around career coaching and the employee engagement, and it works pretty much hand in hand. The coaching is really there to help you build clarity and confidence as you think about what the next steps needs to look like, whether it's very early stages or a little bit more advanced in your career. The coaching is there again to help you build and strengthen the strategy, and it's very clear and very competitive. You'll also have access to quite a strong suite of practical tools. There's tailored advice, there's resources, and all of this helps you prepare and helps you feel empowered as you navigate the job market, which is particularly competitive when it comes to recruitment in financial services. Employee engagement, quite simply put, is our efforts just to bridge your potential and what's happening in the real world. So Sean, who I referenced, together with ourselves, spend a significant amount of time with employees in financial services across the globe, trying to understand what is their appetite like, particularly for those who are trying to hire students who are on programs like yourself. So we gather a lot of intelligence when it comes to what is talent acquisition priorities like for them, what does good hires look like, what are they looking for from a skills perspective, both technical and interpersonal. And all of that intelligence comes together in terms of how we support you in the coaching element of our role. So very strongly complemented. And in summary, this is how you support it from both sides in terms of the coaching to refine your direction, and then the employee partnerships to open the right doors when you're ready to navigate and look for the next role.
Thanks, Giselle. We're just going to have a quick look at some of the resources here to support you now. Maybe just ahead of that, maybe we should just say that we've been working with MFEs for many years now, and we only tell you that really to tell you that we've been round the block once or twice, so are used to quite a lot of the issues that crop up, and we've been supporting them for 10 plus years in some cases in the team. So if you're joining the program, we hope you take comfort in the fact that you will be supported by people who hopefully know what they're doing. Now, you are very lucky people if you join the program, because you not only get access to sort of rather bespoke support that we provide here at the business school, but you also get access to the wider university careers service. They're more geared up for the undergraduate community, and therefore slightly different model, if you like, a volume model. But they have a lot of resources and put on careers fairs, etc., that you as MFE students also get access to. In terms of the support that you get here, we'll take a closer look in the next couple of slides, but there's in-house resources in terms of physical resources, from things that, like the Sainsbury's Library and Bloomberg terminals and that type of thing, but also a lot of digital resources too. And if we just flip to the next slide, Daniel, please. Here, for example, some of the resources you can access via the library here, which is called the Sainsbury's Library, which is part of the wider university Bodleian Library. Also, which you get access to, but you will get free access to things like The Economist, the Financial Times. You'll get access to slightly more bespoke, informative databases like Crunchbase and PitchBook. There's a Bloomberg terminal, as I've mentioned. So a lot of different resources through the library. And if we go to the next slide, please, Daniel. There's also some very practical help around in terms of digital resource. So all students will get free access to the premium Wall Street Prep product. You'll get access to practice aptitude tests. There's a very good test that you'll get access to via the wider university called Job Test Prep, which takes you through a whole host of different exercises that are typically used by banks and other financial institutions in terms of their recruitment processes. You'll get practice with VMOC for things like CVs. For those thinking of consulting, there's a whole case coach consulting, case prep suite, and various sort of video interview practices platforms as well. So there's a myriad of different in-person and digital resources at your disposal. And on to the next slide, please. And even before your journey begins, for those of you still wondering a little bit about where you want to go and how you want to get there, there's some really valuable pre-arrival online courses and modules via our Oxford Said Careers Academy. Things around orientation, around what's around you to help you, but also things around how you go about decision making, career reflection, etc., and then the sort of more practical toolkit that makes up will make up some of your application strategies. Over to Ben.
So an example of our careers learning delivery, which sits alongside the more routine, perhaps describe it, the careers coaching or the employer engagement that Giselle referenced earlier, is a reaction to the year-on-year observation that programs that the incoming MFE class are targeting open earlier and earlier. So the pre-arrival careers module, which is run over 2 full weeks and 3 weekends through July, is our first touch point with the new incoming students. And it's just an example of really what we do and how we do it. There's both an orientation element to this and a learning for students that are, as John referenced, still thinking about their direction post-Oxford. And we, our colleagues here in the Career Centre, along with the industry advisors, examples Roger and Elizabeth here, provide short workshops over the weekends to enable you to start reflecting on where you've been and where you would like to go. During the first week, we put together a sell-side alumni panel, so inviting previous MFE to come back and share their reflections on the programme, their time at Oxford, what worked well for them, what they might wish to, ideas they might wish to pass on, which proved really interesting and valuable for the incoming class. We're also fortunate to engage with both Citi, giving an overview of their business in the Asia Pacific region, but also Rothschild, their banking and advisory business in London. The programme rolled on with another colleague of ours, James Henton, giving an overview of how to utilise and make the most of LinkedIn. things that are integral to the early stage application, CVs and cover letters, then interview skills and so on were touched upon. And the last week consisted of an introduction to consulting, another MFE alumni panel. As you can see, these representatives working at really interesting buy-side private market firms. And then we had a session from a consulting firm, and then the week was rounded off on the final day. Daniel, thank you. We had LEK and a presentation by I suppose you call him an influencer, a LinkedIn influencer, Eric Sim, and with his 2 million followers or something, puts mine to shame. And so it was a great week. It also gives us the opportunity to engage with the incoming class, and gives the incoming class the opportunity to start recognizing a few faces and future classmates. So that's ahead of the arrival. We are currently in the planning stage of this year's July sessions. When students actually arrive in Oxford, that's the second week, around about the 15th. Again, we run a week's activities of workshops and again, careers, orientation, careers, learning around more, I suppose, soft skills, communication studies, communication skills, interpersonal relationships, that are so important, whether it's the networking piece or the early interview stages and so on. But it all kicked off on the Monday night with a tour, a sort of icebreaker, and then a drinks party in that evening. The second day, on the Tuesday, we had the opportunity to speak to the class around navigating the MFE. Actually, now you're on site. And then we had a group coming called the Free Association, which were a group of actors, really, to work with the students around sort of improvisation and how those thinking about scaffolding your communication skills really helps in all manner of areas. The highlight of the week, I suppose, for many is the Wednesday, where we took students down to London, and the students got to visit not all of these firms, but they were allocated a firm visit in the morning and then one in the afternoon that aligns to their the top choice post Oxford. So that's either banking, private markets, asset management, or consulting. And then we rounded off the day with an alumni panel, a networking event, drinks party at a fabulous location, 1 George Street, before all heading back to Oxford late at night. The last 2 days of the launch week, this Thursday was given over largely to the consulting team, although Roger, our industry advisor, did an overview of his capital markets. And then the Friday was again, I guess, an orientation, but this time it was an opportunity for the students to meet and speak with our team of industry advisors, who many of them will have the opportunity or will have worked very closely with subsequently in the latter stages of their interview processes. So those are examples of the formal careers modules, as it were, that we put on each July and then September at the start of the program to support the students as they move forward from sort of thinking about where they're going to how they activate that and put that into practice going forward. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Ben. So John has acknowledged the relationship with the wider university, but we also just want to take a moment to acknowledge or remind you of the privilege of being part of this collegiate system at Oxford. So that means you'll have access to all of the events that they run, particularly around employee events, which they very kindly extend to the MFE students. If we move to the next slide, you'll see some of the organizations that have come through the doors in recent years. So real good representation of high-profile institutes in financial services, most of whom will be familiar to you. So it represents a good combination of investment banks, asset managers, and hedge funds. The next slide, you will see a similar representation in terms of pedigree of institutes from consulting world. So this is strategy consulting, management consulting, as well as those that have more specialist focus, like ZS consultants, which are focused on healthcare industry. And finally, on the last slide, you will see what the university has hosted just in one term alone, and this was in Michaelmas. And these examples represent the breadth and frequency of employee engagement available to you throughout the year. So the business school and the wider university presents really an incredible amount of opportunity to learn beyond the actual theory and classroom environment. There's the opportunity to network, and naturally, with all that comes through, there's an opportunity to understand what you may not have potentially thought about from a career perspective. And that's it.
Right. Thank you so much, John, Ben, and Giselle. I think again, we'll probably just save the questions just because we're a little behind schedule. So we'll save the Q&A for after the student panel, and then we can ask any questions of Dan, careers, or the students. So let me introduce Claudio, Faria, and Marcus. And I'll ask a few questions of you, and then we will hand over to the attendees to ask some questions of you as well. So, Claudio, if we could maybe start with you, would you mind just telling us a bit about what you did before the program, what you've which college you're a part of, and then maybe what your plans are for after the program. And we'll ask the same questions of the other two as well. So, Claudio, do you want to start?
Yeah. So basically, I did a bachelor in economics and management at an Italian university, and then I worked in investment banking as an intern for about 7 months. Then I started the master in September as part of Lincoln College. I think one of the great experience about Oxford is that you're not only part of Said, but you're also part of the college, and there you get the opportunity to meet people that are very diversified background, and I think it's very, very particular about Oxford, and that really helps you over the year, while you're looking for jobs that are more in finance, to also experience something is unrelated to that. And so after the MFE, I think I'm targeting jobs in investment banking, especially M&A.
Perfect. Thank you, Claudio. And the same questions for you, Faria?
So, hello everyone. I did an undergrad in Paris Dauphine in France in financial engineering. So, I started the MFE after doing a summer internship at Bank of America, where I've received a return offer. So, it's still pending. So, maybe I will go there back after the MFE. So, as Claudio said, being part of in the University of Oxford Inside Business School was very, very well. It's not done yet, but it's a very good experience, and we're here to listen all your questions if you have some.
All right, thanks. And Marcus?
Yes, hello. Great to virtually meet everyone. I'm Marcus from Germany, and I studied business administration for undergrad and did an international dual degree program where I studied 2 years in Germany and then 2 years in China, which was quite nice because my mom is also originally from China. And before starting the program, I did some internships as well, tried out different things, and ultimately figured out that I think finance is what interests me the most. And this is also what I'll be doing after the program. And I'm part of Keble College, in my opinion, by far the best college. It's maybe not one of the oldest. It does have some tradition. And if you do get here, you'll figure out why I say it's quite special compared to the other ones because it's red and not the typical sandstone.
Great. That's great. Thank you. The next question I want to ask all of you again, and maybe we can just reverse the order this time. what have you found to be one of the biggest challenges of the program? So Marcus, we'll start with you this time. What have you found to be a big challenge?
I mean, I think if you're in this call and if you're considering applying here, you will know that the program is not easy. It is hard. And yeah, we can't keep a secret about that. But I do think that it's definitely manageable. But what then was a big challenge for me is kind of managing the priorities because there's so many things you can do in Oxford. Some people also have recruiting on their plate. So you have like kind of three opposing forces, which is studying, social life, exploring Oxford, as well as recruiting, and kind of managing those priorities and finding out what is most important to you, and then trying to get the most out of all of these three pillars was quite challenging at times, but also super rewarding, I guess.
Thanks. And Faria, how would you
So
answer?
yeah, same as Marcus, because in Oxford you have so many things to handle. There is formal dinner every days. So as it's a new experience and we want to experience it as we are in Oxford for only 1 year, it's very difficult to manage our time as course also is quite intense, especially if you don't have a background in economics or things related to the degree. So I would say the same thing, and yeah, same as Marcus in general.
Claudio, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say like the program starts in September and it goes by very quickly. One thing that I would advise people who are like willing to join this program is to have a clear idea in their mind who they are looking for after this program, because for me, like the most challenging aspect of this program was managing both recruiting and studying at the same time. So I guess if you have a clear idea once you're starting the program, what you want to do, I think it's very, very helpful also to connect with John because they're always there to help you. And so I would say the most challenging part is conjugating both the academical part and the research of the job during the year.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Claudio, and you've kind of anticipated my next question. So I'll ask Faria this time. What would you recommend if you could sort of go back in time and give yourself some advice if you were in the shoes of the people attending today? What kind of recommendations would you give them?
So I think I will start with the career and
Mhm.
know what will I look for after the degree, because as we are part of Oxford, there will be lots of events, lots of like coffee talks inside Oxford where companies will come and ask us if we want to apply, if we applied in their companies. So I think the first thing I will have in my mind if I go back 1 year before will be to be sure about what which industry I will apply for after the MFE or during the MFE, because as the course is quite intense, we don't have we don't have that much time to handle the course and the applications because it's quite intense. So that will be my first point. The second point will be also like go to the first weeks of preparation, which was, I think, about math and accounting, because it helped a lot for the whole year. And yeah, I think the main point was to be sure about which sector and which industry I will apply for.
Good. And
That's it.
any other advice to add there, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, I think Claudio and Feria also already touched upon the careers point. So I'll try to talk about something else, although I do agree. Look, I think if you're in this call, you're probably also considering other programs in finance or maybe also other business schools or completely different things, perhaps. And I think something that I would advise you is really think about what you want in a program and what you want to get out of it, and don't just look at the rankings and stuff, because obviously the MFE is doing really well on those, but really consider what are your priorities. And I think the MFE has a lot of things to offer in that sense. The career outcomes are great, but also, I mean, we talked about it being an academic challenge, but I think it's a good thing, right? You want to be challenged because only then can you grow. And I think also the whole experience studying in Oxford is something that's truly special. And for me, I think I'm really happy with the choice I made. But other people may have other priorities, and don't just compare program to program by, I don't know, just career outcomes rankings. Really think about what makes a program special. And I think, as mentioned, MFE is really special, but perhaps not the right one for you, or perhaps exactly the right one for you. And I do encourage you to think about that.
Thank you. Yeah. The next question, it's a little bit open, I'd say, but maybe we'll start with Claudio. But could you talk about either a course that you've found particularly interesting on the program? It could be an elective or a core course, or one that you've found particularly challenging, or a part of a course that you'd like to talk about. You can take it in whichever direction you like.
Yeah, well, I think all the main courses were all challenging, but one course that really fascinates me a lot is a course I'm doing right now, the course in private equity. So there are different electives you can choose, and all these electives takes place in Trinity. And I would say like the most fascinating course is advanced by side private equity because you have people coming to the lecture, people that are actually working to the industry. So for instance, last 2 weeks we had a partner from Apollo who came into the class and was like giving his perspective about the industry. So I would say Oxford is not only the place where you get the academic part of it, but also you also get exposure in terms of the careers path. So you get also to talk with these kind of people, and there are a lot of things that are added on top of the courses, like events that are organized within the course with us that we're having guests that are coming to lectures. So I would say the Advanced by Separate Equity has been my favorite course so far.
Nice. Maria?
So for me, it will be financial crisis. It's also an elective that I choose for our last term, which is Trinity term. And why did I really appreciate it? It's because we have to submit an essay, and it was about what we really find interesting. So it could be also in from a topic from our country. So when I was like writing the essay, I've discovered many things, and also so the research that I've made was very interesting, and it it's not like very so it wasn't like the main course where we have to follow everything, we have to go to class and do exercises and like look for solutions. In for this elective, it was more about what we like and what do we want to write about in the essay. So we had to be creative and also find something very niche. So I really appreciated this elective, especially. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And just before Marcus answers, maybe we can open up the Q&A box as well, so we can start letting some of the attendees ask some questions. But Marcus, what about you? Which course would you like to talk about?
I do agree with Claudia and Faria that it's cool that you can pick electives according to your own preferences. But I'll actually say the core courses, I really enjoyed those. And among these, probably econometrics the most, just because I didn't have as much exposure to it before, and kind of learning how to code, to be fair, mainly with AI, but still was really rewarding. And I think that's also something, maybe as an encouragement. I think a lot of people in the class maybe study something like art history, maybe not a lot of people, but quite a few. And I think don't worry about maybe not having the perfect background. I think a really rewarding part is also just kind of getting up to speed and making up for things that you haven't previously learned. And I think that's why I enjoyed econometrics particularly.
Thank you. Great. So we have some questions in. So the first one's from Alessio. He's studying maths at Bath University. Do do you think that it's important to have an economics or management background to do the MFE for someone who's coming from a maths background? This could be for any of you.
Think we had a very diverse cohort, and when I was interacting with some friends that had a background in engineering or in math, there was no problem in terms of the concept. So obviously, if you get selected for the program, your grades are good, and so you know how to learn. I would say you just have to apply your previous skill set in terms of academic background.
Anything to add on that? I think that's a pretty good answer considering what I know as well.
I'm happy to add a little bit. As mentioned, I think a friend of ours, Lola, studied art history, and I think she's doing quite well as well. I think especially if you do something like maths before, it's completely fine. I think if you do something maybe that's more something like art history, where you have limited exposure to maths, it's still okay, but you should be comfortable with maths. And that's maybe the only thing I'd add. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think we'll talk about this a bit more in the admissions presentation as well. But you can apply from any background, but if you don't have a quantitative background, then you might need to do a little bit of work to catch up, and you do need to show quantitative skills to receive an offer. Um, the next question is from Kathleen. I might change it slightly because she's asked, "What did you score for the GMAT?" But maybe I'll tweak that a little bit and say, you may have taken the GRE or the GMAT. Do you have any sort of tips on how you prepared, how much time you spent preparing for the GMAT or GRE? Because these are quite important parts of the application process for any of you students.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Maybe someone can add. I think, yeah, as you mentioned, Daniel, and I think you will be talking about it later as well. I think the GMAT or GRE are super important for application, and I think having a good score is really important. I think in terms of my own preparation, I did spend quite a bit of time on preparing, but obviously there's also other things that are also important. But yeah, I do think, and I think you can find year's performance on GMAT and GRE as well online. But yeah, do try to do your best in these.
That's great. I think we're going to open up the Q&A. So students, current MFEs stay on, but we're going to open it up for careers as well. And if Dan is still on the call, he can join as well. I can't see him on the call, but um, this question, I think this could be for careers as well. But Sheena asks if you could add one skill to every student's toolkit before graduation, what would it be?
Is this for careers or is this for students? I'm not sure that the ones I'm going to mention are necessarily skills, but I'd go for resilience and having faith in yourself because they're difficult markets to negotiate, particularly at the moment. But the students we get are all very talented. And they're just going to have some who don't get things straight away. They've got to, they've got to be resilient around rejections. They've got to have faith in themselves that they'll get to where they want to get eventually. Because for me, having done this for 11 years, I know that students are successful at different stages of their both in-flight and post-flight MFE journeys. But they, by and large, I would say 99% get to where they want to get to. So those are the sort of two behaviours or characteristics, maybe. I don't know whether they're skill sets, but maybe the students have a better take on skill sets.
Yeah, Claudio.
Yeah, I would say in terms of careers, something that really is unique about this program is like you have a small cohort, and so when you get to meet people from that did the MFE the previous years, they're always willing to help you. So I think this is an aspect that is unique about this program. So you can get to interact with them, and they're always open to help you in terms of careers. Obviously, you have people that from now the MFE last year or like 10 years ago, and everybody's always willing to help you. So I think this is something that is unique about this program, and you should account for when you're making your choice about the application to a master in finance.
Yeah, very good point. We've got a question from Kevin about how people or how MFEs are securing roles post-program. Is it typically through on-campus events, through Oscar, or through direct application?
Again, I can kickstart that and welcome to students to either disagree or agree, but I think it's all of those things. Obviously, from a structured hiring point of view, a lot are successful through that direct application process. But I think they'd also agree that where they need it, they get a lot of support from both us and our industry advisors in helping them prepare for those interviews. We post a lot of jobs on our platform, which is called Oscar for those who aren't aware. But we also post a lot of jobs that actually MFE alumni come to us with that want to share with the current class through sort of our Canvas sites as well. And we're always encouraging students to not rely on sitting behind a laptop picking out applications, but networking with as many either alumni or indeed more senior professionals that they can. And I think the students have made mention of some of the co-curricular programs that run and where guest speakers come in, either through those or through the electives. There are plenty of opportunities to make connections in the various industry sectors that students are focused on. So I think it's a combination of all of those things, and I think you're going to be successful. You need to employ all of those things as well. I don't know whether students would agree or not, but that's my take at least.
Jump in, Claudio.
I would say I agree with John, but there is also another aspect that is happening on campus because employers are coming on campus. They are organizing their own events on campus. So, for instance, 2 days ago there was JP Morgan. So they come here, they select you. So you have to still find these opportunities on your own, but they do come on campus. So, for instance, this week was JP Morgan, and next week is gonna be Deutsche Bank. So there is the opportunity to meet these people on campus. You just need to find the right events. You need to be proactive in finding this.
Maybe if I can just add a brief point. I mean, I think a lot of the big companies, they follow really structured processes. So obviously, it's not possible to just get a job by attending an event. Although some people have gotten opportunities through on-campus events. I think there's one person in our class who's going actually to Bridgewater Associates in New York without even being an American through an on-campus event. But yeah, most of it is structured processes. But as John mentioned, John, Ben, and Giselle are absolute rock stars, and they do provide a lot of support. So if you do get an interview through a structured process, they will be there every step along the way. And as long as you make use of it, of course, but they are really, really helpful. Although maybe a lot of the times you will have to apply yourself through the online portals, you will get a lot of support you may need.
That's great. I think we've covered that question well.
I totally agree with.
Sorry,
Uh,
Faria, yeah, jump in.
No, just quickly, I totally agree with Claudio because as I attend lots of JP Morgan events, for example, at the beginning of the year and even now, like when I'm applying now, I can like quickly text them and say, "Oh, I've applied in this position, so can you tell me what to do next, etc." So it's very, very helpful to attend events. So I was just agreeing with what Claudio was saying.
Nice. We've got another question from Kathleen. I assume this is for the students. Do you have any tips for the interview? I assume Kathleen means the Kira talent interview. How did you prepare for the Kira Talent interview and any tips?
I think you really need to have a clear idea in your mind of how the program is structured. So having a clear idea of that, and also how do you want the program to support you in your career. If you have this idea in your mind, I think you will find Kira Talent very straightforward.
Think if you've applied to some finance positions before, a lot of the times you do higher views. And that's quite similar in the sense that the structure is quite similar. And you will have to think about, okay, what have I done in the past? What sets me apart? And then also read up a bit about finance and financial topics going on. The questions won't necessarily be exactly the same as in those higher views, especially like the part on finance might be a bit different, might be your opinion about something. But definitely, yeah, just I think the preparation is quite similar in the sense that think about yourself, what you have to offer, and then also like some understanding of what's going on in the finance world.
And I will add that John and Ben can also help students to have mock interviews. So it's a very great tool to be less stressed during the interview. And also, as a finance student, you have lots of communities on LinkedIn or Instagram, those social media where you can trade your interviews questions. So then you can be less stressed during the interview, but except that I don't have anything else to add.
Nice. We've got a question about professional experience. So how many MFEs have professional experience, and is it helpful to have that experience on the program? Maybe I'll ask careers to address that one first.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it is a it's known as a sort of pre-experienced master's program. So, the average profile, there are definitely outliers to this, but the average profile of students of people who don't necessarily have any full-time work experience. Any work experience they do have tends to be born out of maybe previous internships they've done during their undergraduates. But we do get students with 2 years full-time work experience under their belts. And they've always been actually quite successful, although you could argue they fall slightly between two stools in terms of the classic campus recruitment. Um, but we've had a whole range of people with different experiences, outliers, as I say, because the average profile is not this, but they have all done pretty well. It's slightly less uh, linear way of going about their applications because of this slightly age difference, but they've always been pretty successful, I would say. So a lot depends, Rodrigo, on how much work experience we're talking about.
Nice. Anything to add from anyone, or shall I can move on to the next? Um, I see, Sharmila, your question is a great one, but I think it might be better covered when we get to the admissions presentation. We can talk about what stands out in an applicant and what we're looking for. This one looks very career specific. So Lorenzo asks, beyond large cap PE, how can the finance team support placement into venture and growth equity, given the more off-cycle and often relationship-driven nature? Thanks.
Yeah, well, again, we'll always have a handful of students going into venture or growth equity. We had a couple of people, in fact, on the panel last year who came from Eurazeo, which is a growth equity shop. And there's no real difference to our advice around how they go about that. If they're businesses that don't have sort of structured campus recruitment, then it is a question of students do some networking around that. But as the guys here have alluded to already, we have an incredibly supportive and rich world of alumni who are very helpful. You'll probably find a number of these alumni working at some of the organisations that fall into this category. We also have, in terms of the venture space, the Entrepreneurship Centre, which sits at the heart of the business school. It occupies a big space in the business school, and students can get a lot of support around the whole entrepreneurship and venture space. So I would argue that of many business schools, actually, there's probably more support around venture than many other schools. And I don't see growth equity as being any different, really, to any other part of the investing landscape, other than it slightly occupies a slightly different place on the investing curve. The students still get all the financial, technical prep that surrounds that. We have industry advisors who are working in venture capital, who work with our students on that as well. So there's an awful lot of support in and outside the school to help students land jobs in these sort of early investment stages. I don't know whether
I was just going to add to that, really. I mean, particularly with the lower end of the curve into to venture, what is incumbent really for the student is to create some tangible experience in working with startups, and there's an enormous ecosystem, for want of a better word, in Oxford that lends itself to students with the time they have. Obviously, that's limited, but the engagement with that, both in the formal or informal way. So there's a great there are a great number of things that students can do, which leverages their position here in Oxford to gain some tangible experience that's valued by those type of firms. We can support students in understanding better how to access those things once they're here.
Right, and it looks like I can see one more question that looks like it's best answered by students and one more for careers. So let's see if we can get through those. So for the current students, what is one thing you wish you had known before applying to the MFE? That might be a little difficult considering you were all successful, but anyway, think about that. And are there things that you think you've done correctly to help you get into the MFEs, and what maybe were those things? So if you can answer either part or all of those those two questions, that would be great.
I can
Marcus,
attempt
yeah.
to answer, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you kind of need to, there's some things that are in your control and some things that are outside of your control. So, for example, if you've already kind of like gotten all your grades, then obviously you cannot change them anymore. But things like, so there's some things that you can control, but don't worry about those because you cannot control them. Focus on the things that you can change, which is obviously things like the Kira interview, the GMAT, GRE, or your cover letter, and try to make the most of it out of it, and really think about what sets you apart, what makes you different from maybe another candidate. And then also, if maybe I interpret this question in a different way, kind of what kind of things would I have liked to know about the program? And to be fair, I think I kind of had like an idea what was waiting for me. And I think what helped me a lot was also speaking to a lot of, at the time, current students. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure Claudia and Faria would agree, and a lot of the other students as well. Our names are on the screen. If you have any questions, feel free to find us on LinkedIn, reach out to us, and ask us questions. Because I think in an informal setting or maybe more personalized tips can also be helpful. Yeah.
Anything to add, Faria or Claudia?
Yeah, I think having in mind that at least that's my feeling that whenever you apply to this program, I think your profile is evaluated holistically. So there's maybe you don't have the best GMAT or GRE, but you can compensate with the grades, or if you have already previous experiences, previous internships that can show that you have the background to do this program. So I would say don't worry if you have one aspect or two aspects that are not fully aligned with the theoretical ideal candidates that you might have in mind, but still apply and still try to show your personality, because I guess that is something that people are looking for in the admission process.
Yeah, very good point. Anything to add, Faria?
Yeah, take the opportunity when uh, you'll be in Oxford, because there will be lots of opportunity in front of us everywhere, even during college events, etc. Because maybe the maybe you can find someone where you've maybe you can find someone in front of you inside who's inside the company where you've applied. So like to network very well and learn how to like not be shy and like present yourself in a very good way. And as my classmates say, like don't be stressed during the whole year, because I think it's a very stressful decision in our whole life. But if we are very good in time management, I think it will be very well, and the year is will go very fast. So time management, I think it's also a very good skill to learn just before entering in the program.
That's great. Thank you. And then a final question for careers. So Nagarajan asks, what if I have no finance background and no finance internship?
I'm not sure, Nagarajan, whether you are referring to therefore your ability to get onto the program in the first place, or whether it's going to be an issue for you when you're trying to break into finance once you're here and a student. I'll let Daniel and the admissions team talk about maybe that when they have their spell. And I'll try and answer the second part of that. Um, Realistically, it's obviously going to be harder for somebody who hasn't had any sort of finance internship experience or indeed finance academic background to shine, okay, because of just the volume of applications of students that employers get who do have both of those. Um, but I think Marcus made mention earlier of one of our current students, for example, who has a arts history background and therefore no finance uh, background. She's done incredibly well. So it's it and I would also say that I get senior managing directors speaking to me from banks and from funds, partners of funds, um, often coming to the business school to do presentations and then quietly saying to me, "We'd love to see a really diverse cohort of thinking and people from different academic backgrounds." And I have to say, well, I can't offer that because all the guys here are basically studying finance, and the majority of them have economics or some sort of accounting type of background. So you've got to remember that the employers are not just looking for people with finance backgrounds; they are looking for a diverse workforce, and that includes diversity of academic training, because that in itself gives a diversity of thinking. So don't for one moment believe that a lack of finance internship or a lack of finance background is a showstopper. It just makes life a little bit tougher sometimes. That's all. And I think what you've got to do in order to um, uh, what's the word ease that problem is to demonstrate your interest in finance as an area. Or so that may come through some co-curricular programs you get involved in. It may come by societies you join as a consequence of being here, finance-related societies. It may be a challenge that you get involved in, an M&A challenge or a private equity challenge, something that's proving to the reader or the interviewer that yes, you're serious about finance. And remember that if you do get onto the program, it is a Masters in Financial Economics. So that in itself is evidence that you are interested in finance. So it's not a showstopper. It just requires more work and trying to do things that uh, create a narrative around your want to be in the finance world.
That's great. I think as we're running again a bit behind schedule, so I've kept careers and our current students a bit later than agreed. Thank you so much for joining and providing all your expertise. We'll let you drop off the call now, and Akbar and I will present a bit about the admissions process. So thank you again for joining, everyone.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Very
very
much. Bye.
Right, so on to admissions with Akbar and myself, and we'll have some Q&A at the end of this as well, with Akbar, me, and potentially some others who are still on the call. So what do we look for? This question came up in our Q&A already. We look for quite a few things. So as mentioned by Claudio, I think we're looking at you holistically. So there's not sort of one part of the application that we look at above everything else. There are parts that are potentially more important than others, but we're really trying to get a picture of what you are like as a candidate holistically, not just sort of numbers and measuring you that way. So we're looking for intellect, your academic ability. So we're primarily going to be looking at your transcript, what you've studied, how you've done in your individual modules in those studies. And we're looking for evidence of independent thought. So that's something that can come across in your essay. We're looking for a career plan. So we don't expect you to have everything mapped out perfectly, but we want to have some idea of where you want to go after the program. And as our current students mentioned, this is really important to be thinking about, not just in terms of creating a strong application, but for your own benefit, just to know how do you want to use the program and how do you want to progress after the program. We do look for work experience. For most incoming MFEs, that won't be full-time experience. It will often be like a summer internship of some sort. Most MFEs join the program directly after their bachelor's degree, though some will join maybe 1 year out from completing the bachelor's. And then we're also looking for strong soft skills. So this is primarily going to come across in the Kira Talent video interviews, but we're looking for strong communication, signs that you'll work well in a team, that you can lead in a team, and that you have the stamina to complete what is a very rigorous and demanding course. I'm going to hand over now to Akbar, and he can take us through some of the details of the application requirements.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us today. Daniel, just before I start, I was just wondering if you're still able to share the slides.
Are they not being shared at the moment?
Yeah.
1 moment. Oh.
I will just say while we get the slides up, we will also open the chat box, the Q&A box, just before the presentation ends for any of your questions. So, yeah, so Do you have any questions ready for us?
Apologies, I thought I was sharing the slides. Let me try again. Let me stop sharing and then share again. I think I know why. What about now?
There are. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks
Right.
very much, Daniel. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. Hope you're all doing well. So I'm just going to run through the application requirements regarding the MFE program. So in terms of the application, what we require is an online application form. So that must include your current academic transcripts or previous academic transcripts from when you completed your bachelor's degree or indeed your postgraduate master's degree. Within that, we also require GMAT and GRE test scores, which you would need to also share with us just so that we can verify those. In addition to that, we would need your English language proficiency test just to demonstrate that you do meet the English language requirements for the program. A one-page CV just highlighting your academic background and also any internships or any previous work experience you may have carried out, and also an essay of 500 words. So within that essay, it's a kind of a measure of how suitable you are for the program, what you can offer in the program, and yeah, it's just to gauge your suitability for the MFE program during the 1 year course. We would also require 3 professional or academic references. So that could be academic professional references from your previous work experience, internships, and also your academic references from the institution where you had previously studied. And finally, just on this note, with every application, we require a £75 application fee. So those details can be found on our web pages under the MFE program. Moving on to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the GMAT and GRE scores. So those are very important requirements for the application process. So we do accept the GMAT focus and the GRE scores. So the average class scores from 2025, you can see the GMAT 10th edition was a total score of 750, with the GMAT Focus average score of 698. And just to break down the GRE scores, the average for the quantitative score was 170, and for the verbal was 165. So there's no minimum scores, but we always advise applicants to aim to score as highly as possible in all sections, because as Dan mentioned earlier, it is a very highly quantitative program and very analytical. In addition to test scores, what we also require is English proficiency. So, for example, you could be entitled to an English waiver, but you must be a national or resident of one of in an English majority-speaking country, as defined by our UK Home Office and Visa Immigration Office. So yeah, if you do have any queries regarding that, you can email us and we can have a look at that on a case-by-case basis. You could also be entitled to an academic waiver, so a full-time degree completed no earlier than May 2025 now, if you're applying for September 2027. So the medium of instruction for courses must be in English, and that can sometimes be highlighted within your transcript or a separate letter from the institution just to confirm that the language of instruction was indeed English. Again, if you're not eligible for a waiver, an English test would be required before joining the program, such as an IELTS test. Moving on to the next slide. So we do have an online assessment, which is known as the Kira Talent Assessment Test, where once you submit your application for the MFE program, within 24 hours, you should receive a link for the Kira Talent Assessment. So this is where we send you some pre-recorded questions. You would need a camera so that you can prepare. You will be given some time to prepare for the questions. So again, these are pre-recorded questions, and you have around 2 minutes to answer each question. So there's about 6 questions, and what we look for within this assessment is your experience and how you fit the program, and you can discuss your previous academic background, any experiences you've gained during internship. So it's kind of a measure and a gauge to see how suitable you are for a program, and it gives you that opportunity to demonstrate that, to demonstrate your skills and in terms of what you can bring to the program. And then moving on to the next slide. So in terms of application deadlines, now you'll see some dates on the screen. So please bear in mind, these are for the previous cycle, so you can ignore them for now. But we do have a staged admissions process. So there's 3 stages. And as I mentioned, those dates on the screen there were for the previous cycle, for applicants who have applied for this coming September. But do bear in mind that the deadlines there will be roughly around the same time for this coming. So, for example, stage 1 applicants, it will be around the end of October, this coming October, when you have to submit your application deadline, and then you will also receive your decision early December. And it's the same with stage 2. The application deadline would be around the first or second week of January 2027, with the decision towards the end of February. And stage 3, again, the application deadline would be that first week of March, with the decisions being issued to applicants around mid-April. Just to bear in mind that candidates have 1 week after the application deadline to complete the Kira assessments and for recommenders to upload their letters. So you will have the application deadline by which you have to submit your test scores, for example, the GRE, GMAT scores, and the English proficiency test, like an IELTS, for example. So you will have that deadline, but then you do have an additional week to submit your Kira Talent video questions, and also upload any recommendation letters which are required. Please do bear in mind that only stage 1 and stage 2 applicants are eligible for scholarships, so that is something to bear in mind. So we do advise the sooner you apply for the program, the better, because then you can be considered for a scholarship. But again, that's only in stage 1 and stage 2 of the application process. Moving on to the next slide. So yeah, we do advise you to have a look at what funding opportunities there are. So we advise you to do some research on that, and just to have a look at some of the loans that may be available. So as you can see on the screen there, there's UK government loans, US federal loans, postgraduate study loan providers, and other loan providers. So by all means, if there are any if you do some research in terms of what loans may be available to you, by all means, you can get in touch with us and we can have a look at those just to see that we can accept those. In terms of scholarships, again, as mentioned previously, only stage 1 and stage 2 applicants for the MFE program will be considered for Oxford scholarships. So on our website, you will be able to see scholarships that are automatically considered. So there is a list of those scholarships. So by all means, do check those on the Oxford University website. And also external scholarships. Again, it may be worth just having a look just to see if there are any other external scholarships which may be available to you in terms of where you're studying or the country where you're currently studying. And just finally, there may be some funding opportunities in the home country from where you're applying from. So again, you may be surprised there might be some incentives there and some scholarships which may be available in your home country. So we do advise you to kind of look at those and just to see if there are any that are available, which would be very beneficial. And moving on, I think I'm passing back to Dan, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, that is fine. So yeah, just to talk briefly about college membership, which is something that is an automatic part of being made. So if you're made an offer for the MFE, you'll automatically be placed in a college as well. You do get a little bit of say in that, so you can put your first choice college. We'll give you a list of options, and you can put your first choice. We'll then send your application over to the college, and if they can make you a place, that they can give you a place, they will. Otherwise, you'll be sort of randomly allocated to one of the colleges. But the bottom line is all of the colleges are pretty amazing. Some of them in slightly different ways. So some of them are really old and traditional and might have dining halls that look a bit like this one in the photo. Some of them are more modern with great accommodation options and maybe amazing facilities like tennis courts or a big gym or a big library, close location to Said Business School. Um, so, I mean, all of the colleges have great facilities available, but they will differ slightly. So it's kind of the onus is on you to do a bit of research and look into the different colleges and what's available. Um, there are opportunities to participate in sport through the college. Rowing is obviously a popular option in Oxford. It's a very popular pastime, and many people who have never rowed before will will take up rowing when they come to Oxford because it's such a part of the culture here. Um, Beyond that, the college will also provide you some welfare supports and will give you a sort of vibrant social community in addition to the community you've got through the MFE and the business school. So that gives you a sort of brief overview of the college system. Here is the contact email address for an inbox that Akbar and I look after at the moment. So if you've got sort of questions that are specific to your situation that aren't really appropriate for this format, please just email in and ask your question, and we're always happy to help. But that concludes our presentation. So we will open up again for a bit of Q&A here. Just having a look.
Yeah, Q&A is now open for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Akbar.
That's all right, no worries.
So we'll give you a moment to type in your questions. If you have any questions.
Feel free to type them, and yeah, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the admissions process and the program itself.
Okay, so Ivan with a question. Are there any scholarships, bursaries, or financial aid opportunities available for Ukrainian applicants or students affected by the war in Ukraine? So off the top of my head, I think that there are, to make this relevant for everyone here as well, what you can do to check is if you go on the Oxford website and you search, well, if you just type into Google Oxford scholarships A to Z, there's a little tool there that will allow you to put in the course that you're interested in and put your nationality in, and it will give you a list of all the scholarships that are available to you. So that sort of scholarship would be listed there. And again, whatever country you're from, you can use that tool, and it will give you a list of all the scholarships available. So that will be useful. So again, yeah, search Oxford scholarships A to Z, and it should be the first hit you get. I guess we could quickly go back to some of the. Oh, there's another question in from Ivan again. Thank you. When evaluating applications, does the admissions committee place greater emphasis on quantitative and finance-related coursework, such as finance, economics, mathematics, statistics, econometrics, and related subjects, compared to courses that are directly related to finance? I mean, Akbar, feel free to jump in if you want to add anything, but I would say the first thing we're looking at when we look at your transcripts, for example, is how have you performed? So the first thing we're looking at is, have you achieved the equivalent of a first or a strong 2-1? That's the first layer. So we would much rather see you get a really strong degree qualification in potentially a less quantitative subject than do a really quantitative course and get a 2-1. So the point there is, really the most important thing is to do well in your undergraduate degree. Then, yes, we do look at what particular subject you've studied, and we will be looking at which particular modules you've taken and how you've scored in those modules. And that can really help your application. That is true. But for those, like the example from that the students brought up earlier, if you've studied art history, you're not going to have probably background in any of those things. So that makes something like the GRE or the GMAT quantitative sections really important. So really, yes, it is important to have quantitative background, and that's going to strengthen your application. But like we've said, you can get an offer with an undergraduate background in any subject, so long as you can show primarily through the GRE or GMAT that you have the quantitative skills.
Yeah, I was just going to add there actually, and Dan just touched on it very nicely. That I mean, we look at the applications, or the admissions committee would look at the applications holistically. So they would look at not only your academic background, but how suitable you are for the program. And again, as Dan mentioned, GRE or GMAT scores and how you perform in your Kira test. So yeah, the key word is holistically. That's how the application is assessed. Yeah, I can just see, and I'll just move on to one more question here. It's do you accept predicted grades of my degree if I apply at the end of the second year? So, I mean, we do take into account predicted grades or what you're on course for to achieve. So, but again, we would, on that basis, if we do make you an offer, you would be required to provide your final transcript just before the program starts. Usually that's during the summer months around now. So we would just require your final transcript from the institution with your final grade. At the time of application, we do look at your predicted grades and what you're on course to achieve.
Right, and I think we missed a question earlier too, just about can you apply to more than one master's program like the MSc in just economics? So you can, Rodrigo, you can do that. They do change the rules a little bit from year to year on exactly how many programs you can apply to, and I haven't checked them for the next cycle, but I think that you can apply to 2 taught masters and only 1 research masters, but I'd have to double check that. You can definitely apply to 2 taught masters, and then if you were going to do an MPhil or a DPhil, I think you can only apply to 1 program. But you can find that information on the website, but you should be able to apply to 2 masters. I'll read. Oh, I think I've just accidentally answered a question I didn't mean to here.
Oh, that's okay. I've got it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's from Nicola. Hi, Nicola. So Nicola is asking, for the internship aspect of the application, do you value all kind of internships, regardless of the name of the organization, or do you prefer finance-focused experiences at big firms? Well, I think just to answer that question, I think we look at the application holistically, and that includes your previous work experience. So, I mean, if you, for example, had an internship which wasn't finance focused or wasn't part of a big firm, that wouldn't exactly put you at a disadvantage. So again, we look at those holistically. But yeah, I mean, all types of internships, as long as you highlight them and it shows that you've got sufficient experience, then yeah, we will. That would be considered by the admissions committee when issuing an offer for the MFE program. But yeah, if they are if it is a big firm and a finance focused firm where you did the internship, then yeah, that's great. But again, I mean, it doesn't if it wasn't, that doesn't mean it would put you at a disadvantage. So again, I use that I use that word holistically. We look at the applications in a holistic manner.
Yeah, I agree with all you've said there, Akbar. Kath, I'll read out Kathleen's question. So, for a bachelor's degree completed at a UK university, what average grade is considered competitive for applying to this program? Does it need to be a high first? So, what I would say is most people who get an offer will have a first, whether it's a high first or just, if you've just scraped a first. I wouldn't say that that matters too much, although if we see that you've done really well in your coursework, that is going to strengthen your application, obviously. We do make offers to a number of people who get 2-1s, but they're definitely in the minority. And we have made offers. I think we made one offer last year to someone who even had a 2-2, but that is very unusual. So this question comes up a lot in the inbox. I'm just under the application requirement of a 2-1. Can I still apply? Yes, you can apply, but the rest of your application would have to be incredibly strong to be made an offer. That is the reality of the situation when we've got over 1,000 people applying for a cohort ends up being around 90 people. So that's the way I would answer that question. We'll try and do two more questions here. So Akbar, you'll take the next one and I'll take the one after that.
Sure. Yeah. So I can see the question from Zinnia. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Referring back to Sharmilia's question earlier, I'd like to ask what type of evidence helps demonstrate academic readiness for the MFE beyond the overall degree classification? Thank you. So thanks for your question, by the way. Yeah, so again, I'll just go back to just the application process and how they're assessed. So again, his favorite word today, holistically. The applications are looked at holistically in terms of everything. So not only just your degree classification and your academic background, but it will also take into account how you've performed in either your GMAT or GRE tests, and also the Kira talent test. So those are key indicators in terms of what the admissions committee is looking for when offering a place on the program. So again, beyond just your academic background, it would be the GRE, the GMAT scores, the Kira talent test, and also how you present yourself in your essay, which should demonstrate how you're suitable for the program. And also your work experience is also a key factor within that. So yeah, I would say all of those factors are a determining factor in terms of being able to be offered a place on the program.
Right. And then one last question from Max. So are internships completed after the application deadline, but before the start of the MFE, taken into account in the admissions process? So good question, Max. We will take those into account. So what you would want to do is when you submit your application on your CV, you can list that internship. Just make sure you put the future date next to it so that we can see that that's an internship that you've been offered and that you plan to complete, but just make it clear that you haven't done it yet. You'd be completing the internship after the application deadline, but it's worth knowing you won't be able to update your documents after the application deadline. So make sure that that CV is up to date by the deadline. If you were offered that internship, I don't know, a few weeks after that, we would not be able to update it. So I think, One last one, Akbar.
Um, yeah, so Q's just asking here, which college has the best food? I'm sure Dan, you'll come in on this, but for myself, I've only experienced a couple of colleges, but I guess St. Peter's was quite good. So
Yeah,
yeah, Dan, I don't know if you want
they
to add to anything on that.
yeah, they do very good food. I know that Green Templeton as well, which we send a lot of MFEs to Green Templeton. From what I've heard, their chef did work in a Michelin star kitchen, so they serve very good food. But I think really all the colleges serve pretty good food, so you can't really go wrong. But I think yeah, I think that's probably we're going to have to call it there because we're already 8 minutes over time. But if there were any questions that we weren't able to get to, please just email in the MFE inbox. We'll be happy to respond to them there. Sorry to cut off some good questions at the end here. But thank you all for joining. Again, use that MFE inbox for any questions that we weren't able to get to, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.